The day the DNA results arrived, I almost threw them away unopened. That's the part people never understand when I tell this story now. They imagine some dramatic moment where I already suspected the truth deep down, but I didn't. Not really. After 12 years of marriage, suspicion becomes dangerous because it threatens the entire structure of your life. So instead, you ignore small doubts until they become impossible to escape. And for a very long time, I ignored everything. I was standing in the kitchen when the envelope arrived. Rain pressed softly against the windows while pasta boiled on the stove, and upstairs music played faintly from my stepdaughter Lily's room. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. The kind of sounds that make betrayal feel impossible. I wiped my hands on a towel and stared at the envelope for several seconds. Private laboratory results. My stomach tightened immediately, not because I feared the truth, but because I feared what opening it might change. "Tara," my husband called from the living room. "Did the mail come?" I quickly flipped the envelope over before answering. "Just bills." Lie. My first lie in 12 years of marriage. Funny how quickly honesty dies once fear enters a relationship. I tucked the envelope beneath a stack of cookbooks while my heartbeat slowly started speeding up again. For weeks, I had convinced myself the test was unnecessary, paranoid, ridiculous even. But once doubt enters your mind, it spreads quietly like water inside walls. You don't notice the damage immediately until suddenly everything starts collapsing. It began 3 months earlier during a family barbecue at my mother-in-law's house. One of Richard's cousins had been drinking too much wine when she laughed loudly and said something that changed my entire life. "Well, at least the girls finally look like their real mother now." The conversation stopped instantly. Forks froze midair. Someone dropped a glass near the sink. And Richard? Richard looked terrified. Not angry, terrified. At first, everyone tried pretending I misunderstood the comment. His mother changed the subject too quickly. His sister refused eye contact. Richard became strangely aggressive afterward, insisting his cousin was always drunk and stupid. But it was too late because once a room reacts to one sentence like that, you never forget it. Later that night, I asked Richard directly what she meant. He smiled too quickly. "Nothing," he said. "You know how families gossip." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. Because I loved those girls like they were my own. Emma was 8 when I first met her. Lily was only 5. Their biological mother died in a car accident years earlier, and from the moment I entered their lives, I gave them everything I had emotionally. School events, fevers, bedtime stories, college savings, every broken heart, every nightmare, every tiny moment that turns children into your children over time. I never called them stepdaughters, not in my heart. Then 2 weeks after that barbecue, another strange thing happened. I found old photographs hidden inside Richard's office drawer while searching for printer paper. Pictures of the girls as babies, hospital records, birth documents, and one missing detail suddenly stood out immediately. Richard's name appeared everywhere, but their mother's information had been partially blacked out on several copies. Who blacks out a dead woman's name? That question haunted me for days. Then came the DNA test, a simple private ancestry kit ordered secretly online while Richard traveled for business. At first, I told myself it was ridiculous, just reassurance, just peace of mind. But deep down, part of me already knew something was wrong. And now the envelope sat hidden inside my kitchen while the life I trusted waited quietly to collapse around me. I waited 3 hours before opening the envelope. 3 long hours pretending everything was normal while my entire body felt tense with fear. I finished dinner, helped Lily with homework, smiled through Emma's endless story about school drama, even laughed once when the girls argued over dessert in the kitchen. Normal family moments. The kind that become painful after betrayal because you don't know which memories were real anymore. Richard stayed distracted most of the evening, half listening to conversations, checking his phone too often. Every once in a while, I caught him studying my face carefully like he was searching for something. Maybe guilt, maybe suspicion, maybe the terrifying possibility that secrets eventually stop staying buried. By 10 o'clock, the girls had gone upstairs, and Richard fell asleep on the couch watching television. I stood silently in the kitchen, staring at him for a long moment. 12 years together, 12 years of trust. And suddenly, I realized how little we truly know about the people closest to us. I quietly took the envelope from beneath the cookbooks and carried it upstairs to our bedroom. My hands shook so badly I almost tore the papers while opening them. The first page looked harmless. Percentages, genetic markers, technical language. Then my eyes found the highlighted section near the bottom, and everything inside me stopped. No biological maternal relationship detected. I read the sentence again, and again, and again. My breathing became uneven instantly. No biological maternal relationship, not partial, not distant, none. I sat slowly on the edge of the bed, feeling numb all over. My brain kept trying to force another explanation into existence, some version of reality where this made sense. Maybe the test was wrong. Maybe the sample got mixed up. Maybe. Then I turned the page. The second result destroyed me completely. No biological paternal relationship detected between Richard Hale and either child. I froze. Completely. The room suddenly felt too small to breathe inside. Not Richard either. My husband wasn't their biological father. I looked down at the papers again while panic rushed violently through my chest. Nothing made sense anymore. If Richard wasn't their father, then who were these children? And why had everyone lied for 12 years? A floorboard creaked softly behind me. I looked up instantly. Richard stood in the bedroom doorway, staring directly at the papers in my hands, and the expression on his face told me one terrifying thing immediately. He already knew. For a second, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt massive now, heavy with secrets too old to stay hidden anymore. Richard slowly closed the bedroom door behind him, not angrily, carefully, like a man approaching a live grenade. "Tara," he said quietly. I stood up immediately, clutching the DNA results tightly. "Tell me this is fake." His face broke slightly. Not confusion. Pain. Real pain. And suddenly I understood something even worse than lying. Richard had been afraid of this moment for years. "You took a DNA test," he whispered. I stared at him in disbelief. "That's your concern right now?" He rubbed both hands over his face slowly, exhausted before the conversation even began. "I was trying to protect everyone." That sentence hit me like ice water. Protect everyone, not tell the truth, not explain. Protect. Which meant there was absolutely a truth to hide. I shook my head slowly, while tears burned behind my eyes. "Whose children are they?" Richard closed his eyes briefly. Then came the longest silence of my life, because whatever answer he was about to give me was going to destroy our family forever. Richard didn't answer immediately. He just stood there near the bedroom door looking older than I had ever seen him before. Not physically older, emotionally older. Like carrying this secret for years had slowly hollowed something out inside him. "Say something," I whispered. My voice sounded weak now, fragile in a way I hated. Richard finally looked at me again, and the guilt in his eyes terrified me more than anger would have. "They're my sister's children," he said quietly. For a second, I genuinely thought I misheard him. "Your... what?" "My sister," he repeated. "Claire." The room spun slightly. I grabbed the edge of the dresser to steady myself while confusion crashed violently through my mind. Richard had a sister named Claire, but according to everything he told me over the years, she died long before we met. She was addicted, he continued carefully. Drugs, alcohol, everything. His voice cracked slightly. By the time the girls were born, she could barely take care of herself. I stared at him speechlessly. Nothing about this sounded real anymore. Richard swallowed hard before continuing. The girls had different fathers, neither stayed around. Claire disappeared constantly for weeks at a time. He looked down briefly. When Lily was 4, Claire overdosed. Silence. Heavy silence. Rain still tapped softly against the windows outside while my entire understanding of our family collapsed piece by piece. "So you adopted them?" I asked quietly. Richard nodded slowly. "Legally, yes." That part at least made sense. But another question hit me immediately afterward. "Then why lie?" I asked sharply. "Why tell me they were yours?" Richard looked away, and that hesitation answered more than words ever could. "You thought I wouldn't stay," I realized. His jaw tightened painfully. "When we met," he said quietly, You were 33. You wanted children desperately. I knew that. My chest tightened instantly. Because he was right. Back then, I wanted motherhood more than anything in the world. And Richard knew it. I was afraid if I told you the truth. He stopped mid-sentence. You thought I wouldn't love them. No, he whispered quickly. I thought you wouldn't choose this life. That sentence broke something inside me completely. Not because the girls weren't biologically his, not even because he lied, because he manipulated my choice from the very beginning. Every bedtime story, every birthday, every moment I believed we were building our family together. Started with deception. 12 years. 12 entire years. I looked down at the DNA papers shaking in my hands while tears finally escaped despite how hard I fought them. Richard stepped forward slightly. Tara, please listen to me. No, I snapped suddenly. You listen. My voice echoed sharply through the room now. The girls call me Mom, I whispered painfully. I built my entire life around this family, and every single day you let me believe a lie. They needed stability, he said desperately, and I needed truth. The silence after that sentence felt brutal. Downstairs, I could hear the television still playing softly in the living room, completely unaware our marriage was collapsing upstairs. Richard's eyes filled slightly now. I never wanted to hurt you. Funny how betrayal always hides behind good intentions. I wiped my face quickly, trying to breathe through the panic building inside my chest. Then another terrifying thought hit me. I looked up slowly. Does Emma know? I asked. Richard froze. That reaction alone gave me the answer. My stomach dropped instantly. Oh my God, I whispered, because suddenly this wasn't just about our marriage anymore. This secret had already started poisoning the children too. And deep down, I knew the worst truth still hadn't come out yet. Richard sat down slowly on the edge of the bed like his legs suddenly couldn't hold him anymore. That silence after my question told me everything. Emma knew, at least partially, and somehow that hurt worse than the original lie itself. I stared at him in disbelief. How long? He rubbed his forehead tiredly before answering. About a year. A year. For 12 months, my daughter, because no matter what DNA said, she was my daughter, had been carrying a secret alone while pretending everything was normal around me. Why would you tell her? I asked quietly. Richard looked miserable now. I didn't want to. Then why? Another long pause. Then finally, because she found old adoption paperwork. My chest tightened painfully. Of course she did. Secrets buried inside families never stay buried forever. They leak slowly through old documents, strange conversations, nervous reactions, and unanswered questions until someone finally notices the cracks. She confronted me, Richard admitted softly. She thought I was lying about something else at first. Something else. That phrase caught my attention immediately. What does that mean? Richard looked away again, and suddenly the room felt colder. Richard. His breathing slowed carefully like he was deciding how much more damage truth could do tonight. Claire wasn't supposed to have custody of Emma, he said quietly. I frowned immediately. What? The state almost removed her after Emma was born. Confusion rushed through me instantly. Why? He swallowed hard, then answered. Because Emma tested positive for narcotics at birth. I covered my mouth automatically. Oh my God. Richard nodded slowly, eyes filled with shame now. Claire disappeared for nearly 3 months after Emma was born. He continued. Social services were involved, hospitals, temporary care placements. His voice cracked. By the time I stepped in, Emma barely recognized her own mother. The image shattered me emotionally. A tiny child abandoned before she could even speak properly. No wonder Emma always feared abandonment so deeply. No wonder she became anxious any time people left unexpectedly. Pieces of her personality suddenly rearranged themselves painfully inside my mind. She knows all this? I whispered. Some of it. I sat down slowly across from him, feeling emotionally exhausted already. but something still bothered me deeply. Then why hide it from Lily, too? Richard's face changed immediately, subtly, but enough. And that's when instinct hit me hard again. The same instinct I ignored for months. There's more, I said quietly. He didn't answer. Richard, what else aren't you telling me? His silence became unbearable now, heavy, dangerous. Then finally he whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. Lily doesn't know Claire wasn't her mother. Everything inside me froze. What? Richard looked completely broken now. Lily had a different mother. The room spun violently around me. I stood up so fast the chair nearly fell backward. No, I whispered immediately. No, Richard, stop lying to me. But his face told me he wasn't lying anymore. Not now. My heartbeat pounded painfully in my ears while terror spread through my chest. If Claire wasn't Lily's mother, I said slowly, then who was? Richard looked down at the floor, and suddenly I realized something horrifying. He was ashamed, not guilty. Ashamed, which meant the answer was far worse than I imagined. Then finally he looked back at me with tears filling his eyes, and said the sentence that destroyed whatever remained of our marriage completely. Lily is my biological daughter. Silence. Absolute silence. Because suddenly the DNA test hadn't exposed one lie. It exposed an entire life built on layers of deception. And deep down, I knew the next truth would be the one that ruined everything forever. I couldn't breathe properly. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot, too unreal to exist inside anymore. Lily is your daughter? I repeated slowly. Richard nodded once, barely. Like even he hated hearing the truth out loud now. My mind raced violently trying to connect years of memories that no longer made sense. The way Richard always seemed more protective of Lily than Emma. The tiny differences I ignored because love makes excuses for people automatically. How? I whispered. That one word carried everything inside it. Confusion, rage, fear. Richard stood slowly now, but he still couldn't fully meet my eyes. It happened before I met you, he said quietly. Claire was already struggling badly at the time. She disappeared constantly, and one night she showed up with a baby. I stared at him silently. She said Lily's mother couldn't keep her. A terrible feeling moved through my chest instantly. What mother? Richard closed his eyes briefly, then answered, an affair. I laughed once under my breath. Not because anything was funny, because sometimes pain becomes so overwhelming, your body doesn't know how else to react. You cheated on someone before me? No, he said quickly. I wasn't married. But somehow that barely mattered now, because this story kept getting uglier every minute. Who was she? I asked. Richard shook his head immediately. I don't know. You don't know the mother of your own child? She refused contact after the birth. That sounded impossible, or incomplete. And judging by the guilt flooding his face, he knew it too. I walked toward the window, trying desperately to process everything while rain blurred softly against the glass outside. For 12 years, I believed I entered a broken family and helped heal it. But now I realized I had walked into chaos already in progress. You lied to me from the beginning, I whispered. Richard's voice cracked. I loved you. I turned sharply. No, I snapped. You needed me. That silence afterward told me I hit the truth directly. Because love gives people choices, need makes people manipulate. You wanted someone stable enough to raise children wrapped inside your family's disasters, I continued painfully. And instead of trusting me with the truth, you built our marriage on lies. Richard wiped his face roughly now. I was scared. Of what? That you'd leave. There it was again. Fear. Every lie somehow traced back to fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of abandonment. Fear of losing the version of life he desperately wanted to keep together. But fear doesn't excuse deception. It just explains it. Then another horrifying thought hit me suddenly. I looked at him slowly. Does Lily know you're her father? Richard froze, and once again, his silence answered first. "Oh my God," I whispered. "She found out 6 months ago," he admitted quietly. My knees nearly gave out. So while I spent years believing we were one honest family, both girls had already been carrying different versions of the truth alone. Secrets dividing the house quietly beneath my feet, while I smiled through dinners and birthday parties pretending everything was normal. "Why didn't she tell me?" I asked weakly. Richard looked devastated now. "Because she thought you'd stop loving her." That sentence shattered me completely. Tears finally poured down my face while years of memories crashed violently through my mind. Lily asking if I'd always stay, Emma's fear whenever people argued, the emotional distance growing inside the house recently that I kept blaming on teenage years. No, it was fear. They were terrified the truth would destroy this family. And standing there in the middle of our bedroom, surrounded by 12 years of lies, I realized something heartbreaking. Maybe they were right. The house felt different when I walked back downstairs. Same furniture, same lights, same familiar walls, but nothing inside it felt real anymore. Emma was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under a blanket. Lily was half asleep beside her, resting her head against her sister's shoulder like she always did when she was tired. My heart cracked slightly at the sight, because even now, even after everything, they still looked like my children. Emma looked up first. Something in my face must have given it away. "Mom?" she asked softly. That word hit me harder than anything Richard had said all night. Mom, not DNA, not biology, just a name built from 12 years of love. I sat slowly on the armrest of the couch, unable to find my voice for a moment. Behind me, Richard appeared silently at the bottom of the stairs. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Emma sat up straighter now, sensing something was wrong immediately. "What's going on?" Silence filled the room. Heavy. Final. Lily stirred slightly but didn't open her eyes, and I realized in that moment this was the exact point where everything changed forever. I looked at Richard briefly. He nodded once, a silent permission, or surrender. I took a deep breath, then spoke. "Something came back in a DNA test today," I said quietly. Emma frowned instantly. "A DNA test? Why would you—" "Emma," I interrupted gently. My voice was shaking now, but I forced myself to continue. "It showed that I'm not your biological mother." The room froze. Completely. Even Lily opened her eyes slowly now. Confused, quiet, processing. Emma blinked rapidly. "What?" Tears filled my eyes immediately. "But that doesn't change anything," I added quickly, because it didn't. Not to me. Not in the way I thought it would. I looked at Lily next, my voice breaking slightly. "And Richard is your biological father." Silence again. Then Emma slowly turned her head toward her father standing behind us. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Is that true?" Richard stepped forward slowly, and for the first time all night, he didn't try to hide anything. "Yes," he said softly. That one word collapsed the last illusion holding the house together. Emma stood up abruptly. "Why would you lie to us?" Her voice cracked. Not angry. Hurt. Deep hurt. Richard opened his mouth, then stopped. Because there was no explanation that could fix 12 years of hidden truth. Lily sat up slowly now, confused and shaking her head slightly. "I don't understand." I moved closer to both of them immediately, tears streaming down my face. "You are still my daughters," I said firmly. Emma looked at me desperately. "But you're not." "I don't care," I whispered. "I don't care what biology says." My voice broke completely now. "I raised you. I held you. I loved you. I stayed." Silence. Even Richard looked away now, because he knew the truth. No document could erase that. No DNA test could rewrite it. I reached out and gently took Lily's hand. "You don't lose a mother because of a test," I said softly. Lily started crying immediately. Emma followed seconds later. And suddenly the entire room broke apart emotionally, not from anger, from truth finally arriving too late to be painless. Richard stood behind us silently, tears falling without words, because he finally understood what he had done, not just the lies, but the cost of them. After a long moment, I looked at him one last time. My voice was calm now, tired, but clear. "You didn't protect this family," I said quietly. "You delayed the moment it broke." Then I looked back at the girls and held them tighter. Because whatever happened next, one truth remained stronger than everything else. Family isn't always what you're born into. Sometimes, it's what refuses to let go.